Yeah, I'm here with Ray Bender. Ray's our chairman, as you know. He's one of our more senior members, or most senior members on the board since ab initio. I'm the newest member, so they still have the training wheels on my bike. At the outset of taking on new assignments, one of the things I do is go out and buy a book for books. So I went and bought this one, which is called Forest Management and Planning. And I think it's helpful in the sense that I would really urge you to peruse it as we're going through all these different levels and layers of things. Okay. I think you'll find it very educational.
Right. Thank you. If there's anyone else that would like to have a comment now, if it's something that is relative to the presentation, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Susan Wheeler. I also would encourage the board during this whole consideration to get a second opinion. There's a wonderful group called the Natural Lands Trust in Media, Pennsylvania. When I've been involved with this board for quite a long time, since 2000, and years ago we had gotten a forest stewardship plan from these people, and it's not to compete with what was given to them. It's to give them an alternate view of how to preserve the forest without a lot of negative impact on the forest. So I would encourage the board to look into that and possibly consider that as another alternative, just as a second opinion.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, go ahead.
Hi, thanks.
Just
Jane Maurer, I live on 3rd Street, right across from the park, from the nature park there. And in recent history, someone has been cutting up the logs in the park. I like logs in a park. I like it to stay as natural as it can be. So I don't know what's going on there, but I just thought I'd mention it.
Thank you. Would you folks like to introduce yourselves, and then whoever's going to tee it up can do that, and then you can just proceed with your presentation.
Should I grab the microphone?
We can just go around.
We can just go around. I was going to introduce everybody, but we can. Hi, I'm Ryan Fretz, lifelong resident of Mount Gretna area. I am a self-employed landscaper and artist.
I'm Cavi Miller. I've lived in Lebanon County for 15 years.
I'm Deb Simpson. I'm the newbie. I've been here for 3 years. I live in Mount Gretna.
Mike Sherman, resident of Mount Gretna. Probably about 20 years. Grew up in Lebanon. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. And whoever's going to lead the presentation. Okay, Ryan.
Okay. Thank you for meeting with us today. Do I need to move this closer?
You're good.
I'll try to speak up. Our hope is that today's meeting is just the beginning of a productive dialogue regarding the future of the park. Before we get started, I just want to say that our plan is to read through all of our presentation to the end, at which point we can open up for discussion. It should take a little bit less than 10 minutes. We are here on behalf of the Friends of Governor Dick, and our purpose is to make a case for the preservation of Clarence Schock Memorial Park at Governor Dick. Introductions, we just did that, and also a number of concerned citizens and supporters of our cause are here as well today. The Friends of Governor Dick represent a loose alliance of lovers of the park with widely disparate interests and concerns, united by a common desire to retain Governor Dick as a healthy community park that can be enjoyed by Lebanon County residents and visitors for generations to come, following the wishes of Clarence and Evita Schock. Our argument: per the deed establishing the park, the stewardship logging of Governor Dick is only permissible if the outcome is the improved health of the forest. We contend that this criteria is not being met, that negative impacts of these activities are detrimental to the health of the forest, and that the current logging operations are not justifiable. Pictured here,
Whoops. How do I go backwards?
Pictured
Do you know?
there.
Right click and click previous.
Sorry, folks.
Pictured here are a recent timber harvest site carpeted in invasive plants. 2 pictures of foreign invasives growing tall and replacing the native trees in the forest canopy, and a picture of spotted lanternflies breeding on the thousands of their preferred host tree, Alanthus, the tree of heaven. All of this is the direct result of stewardship activities. These are our asks of you, our county commissioners, the trustees of this park. Number 1, we ask that you prove our argument wrong. Is the forest stewardship plan improving the health of the forest? The deep forest is a threatened ecosystem. Only pockets of this native ecosystem remain, and they need to be protected. Much of the green understory that's seen when driving around the county are invasive plants that do not support wildlife. The native forest is being replaced with invasive plants and breeding the spotted lanternfly in the timber harvest areas. The sapling trees planted mostly don't survive. They succumb to drought stress, they are smothered by invasives, and they are eaten by the deer that repeatedly get inside the fences built to keep them out. Oak decline is a new threat facing our forests from multiple stressors exacerbated by climate change. Last year saw a dramatic die-off of the mature trees left standing to reseed after the timber harvest. Soil compaction from logging equipment and drought stress heightened by the open canopy being major factors. Compare the mortality rates of the mature trees in the last timber harvest area with the area set to be logged next. The second thing we ask is that you make reforms to the Parks Board of Directors. The membership of the Parks Board does not represent the user groups of the park or the community at large. Without binding term limits and the board's ability to select its own membership, there has been little turnover since the 1990s. The board has shown an unwillingness to listen to outside opinions that differ from their own. Some 20 years ago, original members of the Friends of Governor Dick formed an environmental committee at the park to influence a more ecologically sound forest management. Their efforts were to no avail as they were disrespected, their advice dismissed, and eventually discouraged. The committee was disbanded. Beyond the composition of the Parks Board, some areas of concern we would like to highlight are as follows. The relationship between the board and the park's forester, the park ranger, park administrative staffing, treatment of the mountain biking community, criminalized use of fence maintenance trails, the possible disruption of a bald eagle's nest during nesting season, clear cutting around the tower security project, and aesthetics of the park. The suggestions that we have for you are as follows. Place a moratorium on logging while the stewardship plan is reevaluated. Hire an independent conservation organization to have a forest ecologist evaluate the objectives of the stewardship plan versus its outcomes. Hire a consultant to review the board of directors for any possible ethics violations and the relationship they maintain with their forester. Make reforms to the park's board of directors, establish term limits, add members representing the diversity of park users and the community at large. Involve the Lebanon Valley Conservancy. Develop a county-wide Department of Parks and Recreation for professional management of parks, providing full-time employment and benefits to employees. Place the Clarence Schock Memorial Park at Governor Dick under conservation easement and work to enroll it in the Old Grove Forest Network. The mission of the Old Grove Forest Network is to identify and help protect at least one forest, old growth or future old growth, in each county of the United States. Governor Dick is a prime candidate to represent Lebanon County within this national network. Develop a carbon sequestration project that would provide an alternate revenue stream. Manage the deer herd. Deal directly with the root cause of the forest regeneration problem. There are alternatives to the public hunting that Clarence Schock didn't want in the park, such as private firms that cull overpopulations of deer. Our intentions are to maintain a public awareness campaign through events, outreach, and social media, building community support for needed reform. We hope to continue this dialogue between the Friends of Governor Dick and the county commissioners in their role as the trustees of the Clarence Schock Memorial Park at Governor Dick. Thank you for your time and your consideration of these issues.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else want to? Deb?
And that's the presentation.
Oh, yes, I got that, but I didn't know if you had anything specific to add to the presentation. Okay. Miss?
Yeah.
No.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Recently, the butterfly garden,
Could she stand up because I can't see
Sorry.
who's speaking?
the butterfly garden at the park was completely destroyed because of pipes that were, the water pipes that were being put through. And I just want to know if there's anything going to be done to reseed it. When I talked to them, there is, that we're going to have a garden again.
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any comment?
It was reseeded by the contractor with wildflower seeds that were specified by the people who planted the original garden.
Anything else? We certainly want to take this under consideration. We want to have a chance for the board to review it, to respond, and maybe another get-together with, after they've had a chance to digest it and respond to it. Maybe that would be the way to form, or to follow up so we don't lose track. Is that suitable for you
Before
guys?
that, yeah,
Okay.
sure.
That's great.
Yeah,
We would like
Mike.
to have an ongoing dialogue.
Yeah, I can provide additional information whenever it's convenient for you about another source of revenue from forest carbon projects. It's a win-win situation because it really improves the health of the forest and it has a positive impact on climate change.
Is there anything else that you would need from us for the ongoing dialogue, like for today, or to provide?
No, but we would welcome you to any, we have public meetings on the first and third Thursdays, and that also allows for public comment. And we have these kind of workshops, which are scheduled specifically for one, usually for one, exchange. But these are ways of keeping the dialogue going, but I think, to give the board a chance to digest and to review, and then come back to have another meeting might be the way to, to keep the process moving.
Great.
Just to clarify, those Thursday meetings start at 9:30, not at this time.
In this room?
9:30 a.m., yes.
Now that everybody knows where 207 is.
And we're
Okay.
apart?
Yep, yep. Anything else, any media?
I just was wondering, Ryan, at the beginning of the presentation, the pictures of the invasive ground cover, is that kudzu? What is that?
It's largely Japanese, I always get switch and stilt mixed up. I think it's stilt grass. Am I right on that, or stilt grass? And there's a large amount of myelominate in that picture, and that's the stuff that's climbing up and swallowing the fence line and the small trees. It really forms a thick mat and kind of more or less devours the seedlings that are planted out there.
And does it occur naturally? Do birds deposit the seeds, or what?
There's a number of ways that it spreads. Unfortunately, it follows our hiking footprints. But in this case, the logging equipment is just tracking all through, and by the time the dust settles and the new spring arrives, it was just the whole site. And there's also a significant amount of tree of heaven coming up there as well. And you can see in the third picture, that's princess tree. It's got the really large leaf. It's distinctive. That's growing up there too.
And that's invasive?
It's invasive. All of these are mostly, I can't say for certain that they're all Asian, but primarily Asian species. The problem with the invaders is insects are specialists. They can only live on one plant or another, and they're like the building block. You know, the plants turn the sun's energy into food for all the insects, and the insects feed all the birds, and so on and so on. These invaders, they have no predators. The insects won't eat them. Can't feed the birds.
I'm sorry, I should have said this before. During the
Would you
presentation.
introduce yourself?
Oh, Dave, I live in Mount Breakfast.
Okay,
Sorry about that. One of the things, I think as you consider additional conversation about this, is there's a really big biking community, I think, that tried to participate and make changes in the past, and were shut down and really have been hesitant to come back and participate in any kind of activity to try to make change. And I think they should be represented as we go forward, because not only do they use the park, but they help maintain the park. They maintain their own trails. I'm not a biker, but I know that they've done that. I see them out there. I've seen them in the past, but they feel like they haven't been heard. And the group that Ryan was talking about before was a pretty good-sized group that was trying to make change, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And they also felt like they weren't being heard and changes weren't being made to their recommendations.
I'd just like to say I'm one of the original members of that group. And we did amazing things. In fact, we put in the butterfly garden years and years in the early 2000s. And we used to do bird walks, Earth Day celebrations. And yes, we did have bikers represented at the meetings at that point. I would also like to address the fragmentation. I'm a naturalist by trade and lead nature walks in New Jersey, and fragmentation in a forest is perhaps the worst thing. We're in the midst of global migration for birds and wildlife, and you're introducing all kinds of invasive species. You're introducing birds that are going to be detrimental. So there is no good point to the fragmentation. That's why if you decide to have a good stewardship plan in mind, you have to consider maybe doing it in a different way, not just taking bulldozers in and yanking out the hub trees, the mother trees, the ones that are most important to the health of the forest and the soil of the forest. So I just think there's an alternative way of looking at this and maybe trying to end up with a result.
Can I make a point of clarification?
sure.
Forest fragmentation is where what we have is a large, mature forest, a contiguous forest. Whenever there's an incursion into that and you open up a canopy, that's fragmentation. It creates a pathway for invasive plants and invasive animals. Like there are cowbirds that will come and raid the nests of the various deep forest species that need a deep forest to reproduce. So anytime we do something that disturbs a large contiguous forest, that's forest fragmentation.
Yes.
I don't know, are any of you familiar with George Grass?
Yes, I've worked with George Grass at the
Okay.
Nature Conservancy. I know
Okay.
him well.
Okay, thank you. Many years ago, the Swatara Watershed Association, in partnership with the DCNR Fish and Boat Commission, purchased a park which ended up being the center hub of our Swatara Water Trail. And like a lot of what I'm hearing here today, I was really concerned because there had been a golf course and we wanted to let it grow back to natural. And we wanted to plant trees. And George came in and did an assessment of the whole property for us, and I was concerned about invasive species and everything I'm hearing today. And George said, Joellen, just take it slow. That was his a synopsis of what he said. His words to me were of this effect, that the invasive species will be crowded out as the trees grow and mature. But instead of planting trees, allow natural trees to be planted by the squirrels, the acorns, and things like that, because they will be very successful, and you'll get the right kind of forest. And I mean, this goes back a long time. It's obviously a synopsis of his presentation to me. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, I hear and see both sides, and I've experienced both sides, and I don't know, that's not my discipline as a scientist or whatever you would call it. I don't know how to tell who to believe, because there are so many advisors out there on both sides of the issue. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that I really believe in trees, and I help plant trees, and that sort of thing. But I don't know that we're going to be able to do everything that's brought to the table today, and I just wanted you to understand where I was coming from. And maybe we can, but maybe we can't. So I really try and take a practical and informed, from the professionals' view of things, and I just wanted to say that up front. I had a call, an email, just before I came in here, and the gentleman said, well, when was the last time you were at Governor Dick? And I mean beyond the parking lot, kind of, and I thought, whoa. And so my response to him is, well, I go out several times a year, and this past year my church group hiked all over, and our leader was, well, a little confused. He got lost, and we were all over that for hours. I thought I'd never get home. But anyhow, yes, we were up to Governor Dick and saw the clear cutting, etc. And we went all over the place. And I did drone video at another occasion. That was just a few years ago. So yeah, I go out to the park. It's not that I'm a stranger there, So I just wanted to get that on the table, that I enjoy the park, and I listen. We have advisors, and I can't argue all the time with what they say, and I just needed to get that out there. Thank you.
If I could add, I'm not an expert, and Ryan can possibly, he doesn't know where I'm going here, but part of what you said that you learned from George Grass of the natural trees coming up, that's true, but that can't happen always in the park because of the pesticides that are, there's just like pesticides everywhere. It's taking out the invasives, it's taking out those natural trees. We don't give them a chance to come up. And so it's like a double whammy, they're cutting the trees and then the pesticides, and that's another thing that I would really appreciate if there could be some type of an assessment by such a person, because we have 2 watersheds that are fed by this park, and with gallons and gallons of pesticides, it's going into the watershed. And so there's so many aspects to this. It's not just, we don't want to see trees cut down. We want to see the areas that have been cut down. Go back and visit them. Make sure that their health is good. Make sure that, and do it in a way, like we disagree with how they're doing it. And not to say that they're attempting to do the same thing that we want. Everybody wants the forest to be healthy. We just think there needs to be a different discussion on how to do that. We think there are different avenues and different ways to do that.
Well, and this is the first step in identifying your
And
suggestions,
we very
your
much appreciate
recommendations,
this. Thank you.
and there's a lot here for them to consider and to come back with their observations, in fairness to, because this is the first time we're seeing this. And yes, David?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is really just a small representation of the people that are concerned. I don't know how many people are here.
I'm not really concerned
Yeah.
about the number of people. We have
Yeah.
a project in front of us to address, and maybe the next time, if there's more people, that to me is not the issue as much as, let's deal with this. We have a board that's been responsible for a long time, and in fairness to them, this is what is before us to deal with.
Yeah, and I guess I would just say, don't underestimate the number of people that are concerned about this, and I know you're saying you have to look into it.
No, I'm not underestimating or concerned about the numbers. I feel this is a very their look at what their concerns are, and I think we're here to hear that and then to respond, give, a fair airing of it. So, no, I'm not intimidated by the number of people or.
No, I didn't mean to be intimidated, but when we cut, the next cut is like 60 acres behind the heights. I think that is gonna get a lot of people involved, and I'm glad that people are gonna look at it. I think it is important, and whatever the answer, everybody wants the same thing. What Deb said is preservation of the area for use by hikers, visitors, bikers, runners, whoever. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Will we be able to participate or to attend the meeting when the board presents its case?
Well, I think that's going to be, if they want to do it under a workshop, or however, if they want to come in during a public meeting, they're going to have to develop how they want to respond and so on. But certainly, it'll be in a public setting, so,
Okay.
I think that's in fairness, or unless they want to incorporate it into one of their meetings. I don't, this is the first blush here, so I think we have to wait and see what they come back with and what they want to do. So, and then we'll go from there.
Again, I want to say thank you. Your presentation was very well done. A lot of information in there. We give the board and us a lot of things to think about, consider, and I'm looking forward to hearing responses from the board. And I think there may be differences of opinion about things, but I'm glad you clarified. I'm not sure who to believe. I believe everyone has an opinion about this, but it's not a mathematical equation. It's simple as that. It's a lot of moving parts and very complicated. My knowledge of Governor Dick always was just taking a hike and climbing the tower, and I think we all can agree in this room, we have a tremendous resource there, and we all want best. Well, we all want best. What is best for the future of that resource? Include everyone in this room. I think I can speak for everyone. So thank you for your passion, and let's see if we can use any of this information to move us forward.
And we appreciate the opportunity to be able to come and make our case to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, you're welcome.
May I just, two observations, please?
Of course.
Okay. Number one, I especially like your suggestion on a countywide park and rec system. That's not the first time we've considered that. I'd really like to see that myself. The other thing is conservation easement. I don't know that we have the authority to do that because we don't technically own the land. So that might have to go through Schock Foundation or whatever. I don't know that we actually have that authority.
The Lebanon Valley Conservancy has done a number of conservation easements in the county, and in fact, we just had a meeting last night about another potential property in the Mount Gretna area. They would be glad to come in and talk further about that possibility and what the logistics of that could be.
I think the difference that she's pointing out is that this is held in trust, not held in title.
We can research that. We can take that as an action to
Yeah, we
research
have somebody
it.
looking
Have the attorney look at it, yeah.
Okay.
So we can take that as an action to research. We haven't done that.
Those are just on a, the quick read through. I'm sure the board's going to have a whole lot more, but those are just two things that I pulled out.
And may I just ask, if anyone in the audience would have some feedback or some kind of a suggestion, would you be willing to get that? And how would you like that, if you were willing to take those suggestions by email, or how would you like?
Email in writing. I would prefer they not be verbal, because too often you miss or hit and don't respond to something, but we're always welcome to them. I'll make one comment to this gentleman over here. We have an advisory group, and I can tell you flat out, nobody's ever been rejected to ask to be on that advisory group, because I'm the person that points to it. Every user group at the park is represented on it, be it the Horseshoe Trail. We have a memorandum of understanding with the mountain bikers. We have a memorandum of understanding with the boulderers. The Horseshoe Trail people don't do memorandum of understanding, but we have a working relationship with them. The runners are involved. We have individual hikers on it. There's no hiking group, but We would be open if there's a hiking group that's interested in having an MOA with the park. That's the way we prefer to go with user groups. But it's the first I hear that somebody who was offered to help as a user group or a user was rejected, because I can tell you flat out, I've never had a person ask to be on that advisory group that wasn't appointed, because I do the appointment.
I wasn't aware of it. What does, can you expand on
It's the
what the
trail-
advisory group does?
It's a misnomer, it's called the Trails Advisory Group, but it deals with all of the park activities. They were meeting monthly, they've gone to every other month for the summer now. Dr. Becker, one of our board, chairs that. Of course, he's a professor of ecology and forestry at Lebanon Valley College, so he's got the academic background to understand the use of the park. They generally meet the Wednesday before our board meeting. But please, if you're interested in serving that, work through the park office. I need to know who you are, a little bit of your background. I'm not going to load it up with 20 people from the Friends, but I certainly would be open to a couple of your folks being on that. And I'm surprised if bikers are unhappy with us. Other than if the bikers had their way, every trail would be open to bikes. If the equestrian community had their way, every trail would be open to horses. Unfortunately, some of the trails just don't lend themselves to those uses. So yeah, there are people in the biking community that would like to see every trail open to them, and there's people in the equestrian community that would like to see every trail open to horses. That's just not practical from the standpoint of the park, and it's really not safe either. But that group, their report comes to us every month at our board meeting, and we've adopted a lot of the proposals that group has brought to us. So that would be the only thing. It wasn't part of your presentation. It was an aside by one of the other persons that spoke, but I wanted to make that very clear that, please, if you want to help, and I don't think anybody here is on that group or has ever asked to be on it, please let us know and we'll get you on.
Thank you.
So if anybody does have a suggestion or something comes to you that you want to have part of their consideration, shoot them an email and then they'll feed into this dialogue. All right. Anything else for today? If not, thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Good start and healthy discussion, and we